Hi, my name is Layla Perry, and you're watching Under the Covers, my show about the risks taken, the mountains climbed, and the victories behind some of the biggest game changers shaping culture and entertainment today. On today's episode, we have Matt Komo. Matt Komo is a director and creator based out of Los Angeles. For nearly the last decade, Matt has been the creative force behind some of the largest brands, artists, and personalities in the world that have shifted culture at large. On a global scale, Matt is either directing, writing, shooting, editing, producing, and or scoring, which is super impressive. I did not know that. The music to projects he's involved with. Because of this, he's inspired and grown a large following in the hundreds of thousands across multiple social media platforms. The value of his content is viral and expanding. Please welcome, drumroll, Matt Komo. Woo!
It's quite the intro.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's
Of
not like
course.
you've ever heard that one before. But
Definitely not.
I'm so excited. I do think that you are one of the most inspirational people I know, and I feel like a common stereotype that is probably inaccurate about LA is that LA people are not deep. They don't care about like personal well-being, balance, health, and I feel like you live such a good life, and it's a really saturated industry, and yet you kind of rose to the top.
I guess so, and I do care about all those things.
I know.
Quite a bit.
I know. So I want you to take me back to the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orange County, California. So yeah, not too far from here. It's about an hour south of LA.
Yeah, really close to where I grew up. And did you feel like your home growing up was like creative? How did you get into filmmaking?
That's a good question. I didn't really have any creative influences growing up. Like no one in my family has a creative bone in their entire body, which is super ironic.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. I just when I started making videos, I was like 13 years old. And for whatever reason, even though I wasn't like really good at the time or my like skill set hadn't quite caught up with my ambition, obviously when you're that young and you're just starting something new for the first time, it really just made sense to me. And I kind of just pursued that interest from pretty early on, and thank God it worked out.
Yeah. But okay, so take me back to when you were 13. What made you pick up a camera? How did you get it? What did you film? Like, what was the curiosity behind it?
So being from Orange County, there's a big like skate and surf culture. So I grew up skateboarding and surfing a ton. And kind of the first couple of videos I made were just really, really bad, like skate videos in my parents' cul-de-sac growing up. But like the real catalyst that kind of kickstarted my career, kickstarted my pursuit into filmmaking was an injury I had in high school. So I ran track and field, but more specifically, I pole vaulted, which is so random. It's like the most random thing in the entire world.
Dangerous. Jeez.
Very dangerous. I ended up like kind of straining both my Achilles tendons, one meet. And in order to stay involved with the team and still be a part of the season, I like picked up a camera and started documenting practices.
Cool.
And that was kind of like the first thing that kind of kickstarted everything for me.
Did you feel like at the time it was a way for you to add value to your team and coach and just stay involved? Or
Yeah, it was definitely a way to stay involved with everybody because I just didn't want to sit out for the whole season. So it was a way to like hang out with my friends, like, provide value, have them like watch, film back, and it was cool.
Yeah. So one thing about your industry is I feel like it's really hard to make a living out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people, and I think for better or for worse, like there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. So you might be collaborating with another person and they're doing something cool and you're filming it. But did you think, oh, you know what? This is a cool skill to develop. Like, let me actually study it and maybe I could do this full time.
I didn't ever really consider it a full-time career until probably a couple years into it.
Okay.
I just knew from the onset that it was something that I was extremely interested in, and I would just lose myself for hours shooting stuff, sitting behind a computer, learning everything you could on the post-production side.
Like tutorials and
everything, yeah. Like binged YouTube. I mean, I still to this day binge YouTube tutorials and different things to keep my skill set sharp, but it's just one of those things where although I didn't anticipate it being a full-time career when I first started, I knew that I didn't want to do anything else when I was younger. So I just kept doing it, and I still keep doing it.
Okay, that's so interesting to me. So, okay, when you were a kid, And
Yeah.
you thought, like, what was the first thing you thought you would be, like an astronaut or?
A baseball player.
Okay.
Yeah, because I grew up playing Little League, and my grandfather at the time loved baseball, and I feel like he was a huge influence in my life. And I thought that's what I was going to do, but obviously that didn't pan out.
Yeah, right. And did you tell anybody that this was your dream?
Filmmaking?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No,
So,
I just kind of did it.
huh.
Yeah.
So, did you have any like outside pressure or like you should go be a doctor type influence in your life?
No, I actually had the opposite. I think I was very fortunate that my parents, well, really, yeah, specifically my parents saw that I had a spark for creativity and filmmaking, and they really helped facilitate and nurture that. But
How?
well, they helped put me through film school, so that
Okay.
definitely helps a ton.
Okay.
When you're 14 years old, 15 years old, you don't have that much money, so they helped, me get my first camera and different things, which is fantastic. But I think what helped me help them want to push my career forward more was them seeing just how passionate I was about it. And, it's one thing to, help give your kid a camera or, whatever their passion is, but it's another to give them that thing and then watch them really flourish with it.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like, because initially it was filmmaking, right? Specifically, do you feel like filmmaking is something where it's a ladder? So whoever has the best skill is the person that creates the best film and the best content? Or do you think it's something that actually has individuality? So not only do you have to get the skill set, but you also have to be able to put your own creativity behind it. Like, how do you measure that?
That's a really fantastic question. Well, filmmaking is very multifaceted, and you need to be good at a ton of different things. So you have the technical skills of knowing how to operate cameras, lighting, understanding all the intricacies of that. Then you have the post-production side, which is editing, VFX, sound design, sound mixing, color grading. Then you have the writing side, so you need to understand story, you need to understand character arcs, structure. And then there's like this esoteric part that's outside of all the technical skill, and it's just having a very well-rounded worldview that you can relate to people, you can understand their story, you can understand where they're coming from. And then when you combine all those things together, that's how you create something that's really unique and special. So It's not just one thing, it's a multitude of skills that you need to be exceptional at. It's pretty difficult.
Wow. And I also think that another element that isn't even in that list but is required is, in a way, like marketing, putting yourself, because you could be like the world's best filmmaker and nobody would know, or maybe like you'd get in the wedding video circuit or something.
Totally. I feel like that's the case with anything, though. You probably feel that way with like your music. You can probably be the best composer, musician, singer, whatever it is, producer, but if you don't have the marketing side as well, and you also don't have the ability to just be well-spoken and relate to people, you kind of just fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Okay, so you graduated college, I assume.
I did,
right?
yes.
And you had a filmmaking degree.
I do, yes.
Did you? You still do.
I still have it, yes.
Didn't go away.
Yeah.
What else did you have? Like, did you have your parents saying, we'll financially support you, just like make it happen? Or like, I want to know like what your financial situation was, what you're like what was actually within your realm of possibility of what you could do after you graduated college. Like, how did you make it?
Well, I started working for GoPro within 2 weeks of graduating college. And I did that for 3 years and ended up
doing what? Like just content for them?
So I was on their social media team.
Okay.
And obviously my trajectory when I first started to when I finished was a lot different. So when I first started, I kind of was just doing like a lot of kind of admin, kind of basic work for the team. But as the years went on, I ended up having like a lot more of creative input and a lot more leadership within the company, which was fantastic, and got to travel the whole world and whatnot. Cool. But to answer your question directly, I think the greatest gift that my parents gave me was taking the pressure off financially, at least throughout the college years
Mm-hmm.
and helping me like through that. Obviously, I was still working. I worked for this racing company based out of Orange County called John Force Racing, and I used to do a lot of their marketing and advertising throughout my entire college years. So for 4 years there, that was, I would say, 20 to 30 hours a week. And then I would do wedding films and stuff as
You
well.
did?
I
Okay,
did,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, I want a
Everyone
wedding.
starts as that.
Yeah. I love that.
Which was great because I, probably would do anywhere between 5 to 15 a year
Wow.
for 4 years straight. And
That's actually a pretty good amount of money, I feel like.
without getting into a specific number, I did exceptionally well.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, between the 4 years I did at college, between those two jobs.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a yin and yang where it's like, yes, like I didn't have to pay for school, which is the greatest gift ever. And I'm going to do that for my kids, as long as they're, passionate about the thing that they're doing, if they want to go to school. But I also, from the onset, have had, a work ethic instilled in me from the get. So
Yeah.
there's a synchronicity, I guess, between those two things.
Yeah. One thing I'm always curious about is with art, it's so subjective. So like I always think about that Van Gogh story of how he created all this incredible art and nobody cared about it. And then he died. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know how many millions those pieces of art would go for, but it's like multiple millions. And so when you were just starting out and, for example, even doing something as like simple as a wedding video,
Yeah.
how did you know how to price it? Was it like the more confidence you gained, the more you would like increase the rate, or like how do you know how to value it?
Well, when you're first starting out, you have to do things for really cheap, and that's just kind of the way it is until you have so much undeniable proof that you are as good as you say you are, or as good as the price that you're quoting, that people will say yes. So that's kind of at like the point that I'm at in my career now, where the finances and the money situation, it's not even a question. It's more so just name a number, and like I give them a number, and so far for the last 2 years I haven't had any pushback really on anything. So
Wow. So okay, so now you have a steady job, which in and of itself I feel like is really special and significant. Then how did you transition from that into every other thing on your resume that, like those are each milestones in and of themselves?
As far as like the skill sets, or?
No, like you had a steady job.
Yeah.
But I know that, for example, you've done work with Justin Bieber, you've like done so many incredible artist projects and projects outside of that. How did you branch out of working for GoPro to?
Well, I think at its very core, I'm not, what would be the right way to say it? My identity isn't in a job. My identity is within the skill set that I've spent 2 decades cultivating. And luckily, just by the nature of what I do, that skill set is valuable to a lot of different people, and you really can take it anywhere. So, it just depends on what season of life I'm in. Like I did, the GoPro thing, which opened up a lot of doors and met a lot of different people. And, I just take that filmmaking creative skill set and just apply it to an artist or apply it to a different brand. And yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah. And then actually before we began filming, you had mentioned that you have this film that you had started creating, what, like 4 years ago, maybe?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
Yeah. And you were saying like sometimes you create a project and there's such a delayed gratification. I want you to like kind of walk me through what made you start that project, what ended up being the delayed gratification, and what was like your headspace throughout.
Yeah. So to make a long story incredibly short, I made a film about my grandpa and his battle with Alzheimer's that I started writing in 2019, did all the principal photography and production in the end of 2019. And then it took about 1.5 to 2 years to do all the post-production and editing, which I also do all of as well. And
So you're the only person that worked on this project?
I'm not the only person.
Okay.
There's a team of people that helped the production and actually shooting. But on the post-production side, it was maybe me and a couple other people. My buddy Mitch was a godsend and helped a lot throughout the editing process and actually structuring it. And then I had a couple people help on the VFX side.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, from inception of idea to actually premiering it at the Directors Guild of America, it was about 2.5 years. And then from that premiere to it being online was probably like another, call it 9 months. And then from it being online to it just won a bunch of awards at the Los Angeles Film Awards, call that like another 8 or 9 months within like that 4-year journey. That's a long time to start one creative project, and then you really don't have that like moment or external validation where you can pat yourself on the back until 4 years later. So you really gotta, the only antidote to that is you just have to love what you're doing. Otherwise, like, you would look at that timeline or time horizon and be like, you're crazy for wanting to do something like that.
Yeah. But I know that, for example, the story itself and your grandfather and his life and your relationship to him is special to you. So in and of itself, it makes sense as to why you wanted to start the project. But what was it in you that wanted to push it and to push yourself to do it? Like, what was the dream behind it and the hope?
Well, he's a really important person to me, and I figured that this would be the best way to honor him. There's a thread within that that's also making that project is like my catharsis for how I mentally and emotionally dealt with that. And then the other thing is too, I guess another thread within my like psychology would be, it's great doing all the stuff for all the musicians and artists and different things. But I guess you do get to a point, you might feel this way with like your music and stuff, where like you want to do something that like just really inspires you deep within your soul. And as a creative, there are moments within your life where you're so profoundly called to do something that if you don't do it, it's almost, what would be the right way to say it? You feel like you're missing something. So it wasn't even like a question of should I or shouldn't I do this? It's like I'm 100% doing this because I feel it within every fiber of my being that like this is what I need to be doing right now.
Like as part of your purpose and your destiny.
So I just do it.
Yeah. Wow. And I feel like a lot of people might feel that feeling, but then when you're like, oh shoot, I would have to invest. Like, I know from past conversations that you invested a lot of your personal money into it.
Yeah. It was over 6 figures.
What?
Yeah.
That's more than I remember. Yeah. So like, for somebody to be able to do that, like, how did you know how much you were willing to sacrifice for this like purpose or sense of?
Well, I think every creative project always costs more money and it takes a lot longer than you originally anticipated. So I didn't anticipate it taking that long or costing that much. But you know what the sunk cost fallacy is?
No.
It's like once you get into something, like you're like, well, I'm already X amount of dollars in or X amount of time in. What's another X amount of dollars or X amount of time?
Yeah.
So I definitely fell into that. But I mean, if you're going to do something, do it all the way and do it how it needs to be done. And you're not going to skip any corners.
Did you feel like there was any risk involved? Like, what if you spent 6 figures on this project, but then you didn't get the recognition?
I don't know if I ever looked at it like that, because the primary motivation wasn't to have the recognition or have the external feedback. And like I kind of made a comment when you were walking your car before we started, where it's like the success for me was just getting it done and having that final file on my computer and seeing the impact that it had on my immediate circle, my friends, my family specifically. And that's the reward. The having the statues and all like the accolades from other people, that's just like a cherry on the top. But I'm very conscious of that not defining my self-worth, and I don't let it define my self-worth. I think it's a cool thing, and I look at it and it's a cool part of like my trajectory and accomplishments, but just because someone told me that like this thing has value doesn't give it any more value. Like the value came from me doing it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was talking to somebody recently who feels like he doesn't know what his sense of purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you can have like a cushy job, a great relationship with family, friends, but like still not know what your purpose is. And I feel like when you do get blessed with this like strong impulse that makes you want to do something, and then you actually do it, and then you actually finish it and like complete it. It's like completely nothing else you can do with that film, I assume. I don't know, but I assume. Like, then what? Do you feel like, oh shoot, I have to find a new purpose?
Well, your purpose is always changing, and you can find it in a lot of different things. It's almost like a lot of people ask like the question, like, what's the meaning of life? And the meaning is whatever you ascribe to it. Like it's fluid for everybody. And I think your purpose is the same thing, and that can change with different seasons. So for that season of my life, like profoundly, my purpose was accomplishing that project. Now it's different. But the through line amongst all these things is my love for filmmaking, my love for creativity, and I don't think that really ever changes.
Yeah. Do you feel almost like a freedom in having it completed? So now you kind of get to float a little bit until you find your next one?
Not really, because I mean, even while I was working on that, I was still doing a ton of other projects on the side, not on the side, but like for work, because like obviously I didn't get paid to make that movie. I did that on my own time and dollar. So sorry, what was the question again?
No, like, do you feel like you have freedom to just, chill till you find your next purpose?
I'd never really feel freedom to just chill, unfortunately.
Okay.
Or fortunately, I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. I'm somewhat of a workaholic. If you haven't figured that out yet.
Well, no, I get it. And actually, it's funny because I was like curious when you said that you were doing it on your own time. I'm like, so one thing that if I look back on my life, I realize if I had a choice, I always chose work over pleasure. And looking back, I'm like, oh, I think I should have put more boundaries around work, because sometimes it's like I'd still hang out with friends, but like I wouldn't stay that extra hour. I would still go to a party, but like I'd make sure I was home before midnight at least, so I could get ready now.
Yeah.
And do you ever like think, oh, I feel like maybe I would have had a more balanced life if I wasn't so focused on work?
I mean, it just depends. I actually, what would be the right way to say this? I've had to find that balance throughout my life and throughout the years, and there's a yin and yang to both. Like there's times to be head down focused and work and say no to the party and say no to the extra hour and say no to traveling, and you really just gotta like get the thing is of whatever you're doing done and capture that creative inspiration or capture that creative spark. And then there's another time where you just have to look at everything and be like, I'm just gonna enjoy my life, and I'm going to go travel, and I'm going to stay out late, and I'm going to have good conversations with people. And that balance is different for everybody. Some people skew a little bit more on the work side. Some people skew a little bit more on, the pleasure side of things. And you just got to ask yourself, like, what is that good balance for you personally? And it's different for everyone.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Do you have moments in your life where you've been like, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing this, or like get to do this? Like, what are some of those moments for you?
That's a really good question as well. I've had a couple of those, I think, throughout my life. When I started working at GoPro, that was one of them, because one of the first couple cameras that I picked up and inspired me to pursue filmmaking was one of the early GoPros, and watching a lot of those videos online. And I grew up doing action sports, surfing, skating, and snowboarding, all those things. So when I sat at my desk for the first time up in San Francisco at their headquarters, that was like one of those kind of
whoa
moments. Like, I can't believe I'm here. And just by where our team was situated at the office, like my desk was within like 20 feet of the CEO, Nick Woodman's, and that's just pure luck. And I just remember I was 21 when I started working there, and I was like, this is crazy. So there was that moment. And then, I do a bunch of work in the music business as well. Obviously on the filmmaking side, like music videos and touring videos and whatnot. But I think when I started working with the Chainsmokers back in 2016 and 17, that was another one, because I was a huge fan.
That was when they were blowing up, right? With like, what's that song? Don't
Don't Let Me
Don't Let
Down,
Me Down.
Closer,
Yeah.
Paris, yeah, all those. And that was like another one of those moments where I listened to them all throughout college and their early remixes on Hype Machine. And now I'm like making their music videos. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Which music videos did you make?
So me and my buddy Rory, you know Rory Kramer,
Yeah.
we've collaborated on a bunch of projects together with them. We did Closer.
Which is funny because Taylor, or Jordan, but Taylor Cut Films
Yeah.
was on the show.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Love him.
That's one of the biggest music videos of all time, though. I'm pretty sure it has like 1 billion views or something like that.
Yeah,
The lyric video.
Yeah,
I
it's like
guess,
2.8 billion or something.
2.8 billion with a B.
I mean, that's just one of those things though where it's like, it's just, you can't predict those things. It's right place, right time, not only for them, but obviously for us too. Like when we were making it, we had no idea it was gonna be that, and that's just how like the music business is. You probably feel that more strongly than anyone. But yeah, we did that one. We did this song called You Owe Me. We did a song called Everybody Hates Me, the music videos.
That was my favorite Chainsmokers song.
Which one?
Loved that song. I could not work out without it. Everybody Hates Me.
It's a good one. You should watch the music video.
I should. I haven't.
I was the director of photography, the cinematographer on it.
Wow.
But yeah, that was like another one of those things where I'm like, this is nuts. Like I can't believe this is happening.
But do you think the genesis of that opportunity was luck? Like how did that come about?
Well, there's always an element of luck within everybody's career, whether they admit it or not. You're at the right place, right time, shook the right hand, said the right thing, got the right opportunity. There's always going to be a variable of that.
But if you could go back, like, okay, so maybe, because I know you're friends with Rory.
Yes.
So, and I feel like he was probably working with them.
He was, yes.
But if you like go back to the initial movement, like even if it was something really random, like what was the like choice that you made that maybe led you to something that led you to meeting Rory, that led you to...
Well, I do believe that you create your own luck in a sense. And I think the thing that keeps propelling me forward and keeps making me a lucky person is always doing what I say I'm going to do, keeping my skills as sharp as possible, and just being reliable. And I feel like if you do those three things for any extended period of time, a decade, 2 decades, like it's almost impossible for good things not to eventually happen to you.
That's such a good answer. That just blew my brain, because I think that sometimes you think, and I actually have to constantly remind myself of this, like sometimes you think, oh yeah, right place, right time. So like choosing, this is a random example, but like choosing to go to this event might change my life, or choosing not to. But then I always remind myself like, no, like wherever you go, there you are. And I feel like your answer is saying that it's actually you that's creating the luck, like what your character is, like your reliability, what your skill set is, that's actually creating the opportunity, which in a way implies that if you hadn't gotten that opportunity, there would be another opportunity because of who you are.
Definitely. That was
knock on wood.
That was a really good way to wrap that up. Yeah, that's good.
Wow. Okay, cool. So is that the biggest like moment of your life where you're like, oh, I'm working for the Chainsmokers, just made one of the biggest music videos of all time?
No, it wasn't. I would say, well, what's the question? What's the biggest?
Like the whoa moments in your life, like.
I mean, I would say the most fulfilling and most profound one was when I was standing on the stage at the Directors Guild of America premiering my movie. And that's just because there was just so much emotion, effort, sacrifice, time, energy, like everything put into that. That was like one of those where I was just like, okay, I actually like I did the thing. Whereas like I feel that way about the other things as well. But yeah, that the premiere, that was a special one for me.
Do you think that like the extent of, in a way, like the high that you get from a moment like that is like proportional to the amount of sacrifice you had to do to get there? Or do you think that it's actually, no, anybody could go and have their movie premiered and that would be like a whoa moment? Or do you think it's like 4 years of...
The sacrifice is definitely not proportional. Like nobody sees how much time this stuff takes. And I think that's not only is it's obviously hard work. Anything you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a musician, like it's all hard work. Filmmaking though specifically, obviously there's hard work involved, but it's just so time intensive, and there's a lot of parts of the process that just can't be expedited. Like, yes, you can have teams of people helping do different things, and it certainly helps, but it takes forever. And like 4 years, if you want to call it 4 years, it was really 2.5 to the premiere, but like 4 years for like one moment that lasts an hour and a half. That doesn't really sound worth it if you put it like that.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're an Olympian, it's like the same thing. That's like an entire lifetime of training for something to get to the Olympic stage. And then.
Yeah. That's so interesting. It reminds me, because I opened for the Coldplay show, and
I wanted to talk to you about that too, by the way, which is unbelievable.
Thank you. Yeah, I was to the moon. But for that, it's like, there was 6 months of auditioning, submitting playlists.
Yeah.
And then they said, like, it's a pie in the sky, like, don't get excited. But then, like, I was like, I'm not going to cuss, but I was like, I'm going to get excited anyways, just for the opportunity. And then when I got the gig, it was like another 6 months of preparing for it. And it's almost like manifesting in a way, because if you know that you're about to win like $1 million in a lottery or something, you're going to act as if like every cell in your being has the excitement of like having already received that gift.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the days get closer and closer, like you feel this like insane like rush of joy and like almost like pride, and you feel like you're savoring every microsecond. And then you wake up on the day of whatever, like even at a wedding, if I haven't been married, but like if I was married, I feel like what I'd feel like. And you're like, wait a second, I've been waiting for this opportunity my entire life. And there's almost like a bittersweetness that's like, you realize how limited your power is because you can't keep the moment longer than any other day. So when you're having a bad day, you're like, oh, great, wonderful. Like in an hour or in a day, like this is going to be done. But you're just going to almost like just let the wave of time wash past you, and then it's completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really confusing as a human, I feel like, to figure out how to savor it and also how to let it go once it passes. And like, I feel like it is important to actually get excited about things and not to be like, oh, like it's just a moment. But how do you almost like deal with the aftershock or like the aftermath of like, oh, okay, this really special moment is now forever just a memory?
Well, there's always a low after a peak life experience. It's just how it is. Everything that goes up must come down.
Yeah.
So, the higher that you anticipate something happening, like a wedding or a premiere or playing at a Coldplay show, you're going to have that, like, I hate to call it, but like depressive low afterwards once it's gone.
Do you think it's avoidable?
I think there are antidotes to it. I don't know if it's completely avoidable. I would say some of the antidotes could be setting new goals and finding new hills to climb, and just acknowledging that was like a really cool life moment, and you're not sad that it's gone. You're more so just happy it happened, and now you have a new challenge. And a lot of, positive, what would be the right way to say it? A lot of like your own like feelings of positivity and emotional well-being comes from having goals and then seeing yourself, work towards that goal. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily achieving the thing itself. So what I do is I always try to have like the next thing like ready to go, or the next couple things that I want to do like somewhat in motion, so that I do similar to what you're saying. Like a couple of days after the premiere, I definitely had those lows. I'm like, wow, this journey is like wrapping up, when it was something that I was so passionate about for a long time. But I had the next couple of things ready to go, and I was like, all right, time to, wake up and climb a new mountain.
Does that mean that you're never satisfied though? Because you never like stay in that moment.
Well, nothing lasts forever. So I think it's unreasonable to think that because I achieved one thing that it's going to sustain my fulfillment for my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just come to the conclusion as I'm getting older, like for me personally, I always need just something to like strive towards and do. And I think that's just buried within my DNA. And I think that's why I wake up and work out as hard as I do every day, why I always have film projects in motion, why there's always just something to kind of chase after, and it gives my life a lot of purpose and a lot of meaning.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like after all of your success, you are in a place that, in a way, your life is very inbound, where you don't have to go and like send cold emails or like try to find opportunities, that it kind of comes to you? Or do you still have to compartmentalize and be like, I know that I'm one talented mofo, but I need to like send some cold emails out today because that's what I do?
It just depends on like how I want to spend my time. I will definitely say it's a lot more inbound, or mostly inbound now at the state I'm at. But if I want to work with somebody, or there's a project that I think is interesting, like I'm not afraid, or I don't have an ego or think I'm too cool to send a cold email or just, ask for something that I want.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like every time I see you or talk to you, my brain is kind of blown because I just feel like you can kind of see how healthy somebody's well-being is from the second you bump into them.
Mm.
And I think that well-being is something that you have to continually cultivate, because you could be like thriving and like healthy emotionally, spiritually, like physically in one moment of your life, and in another moment you could not be that. And I'm curious, like, what your mantras that you live by are that keep you in such a healthy, light kind of energetic space.
Well, you're right that it is a daily thing, and I'm incredibly conscious of keeping everything like in checks and balances, and very aware of like my emotional, physical like state. So, the most basic block and tackle things you can do is you got to be conscious of the things you're putting in your body. So eating clean. I don't drink anymore. That's kind of been something I gave up like 3 years ago. So that obviously really helps as well.
Do you ever get like slap back for that? Like,
I did for probably the first 6 months to a year, because for some reason people think you have a problem when you tell them that you don't drink.
I prefer when people think I have a problem, because I've never
There you
drank. What's the grammar? Drank.
Yeah.
But then I realized that people pressure you unless they think you have a problem. So I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sober," which implies that like at one point I wasn't.
You had an issue. Most of my friends and circle know now that I don't, so it's like not even really a thing.
Okay.
But that's a variable within the equation. I work out every single day, which is huge. So you got to move your body. And then, you got to take stock on your relationships with your family, with your friends, make sure all those things are copacetic. You got to have, like we've been talking a lot about purpose, but you got to have goals, and you got to have things to strive towards every single day. And, it's a combination of all those things. Like obviously every day is different. I don't feel good every single day. But just because I don't feel good about like wanting to go to the gym or wanting to work doesn't mean I don't do it. Like I still do the things every day that I know will balance me out over the long term. So I think the answer to that question would just be, having discipline and taking stock of all these things in your life and just trying to do your best at it every single day.
Yeah. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge you've had to overcome?
That's a really good question. In what aspect? Like career, mental, emotional?
I would love the answer to all of those.
All of them?
I was just saying, like, in life in general, like, yeah, which I guess could be like either career or personal.
I guess they somewhat go hand in hand. Like early on in the career, we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, but believing in yourself before other people do. There's kind of like this weird thing. I don't know if it's like this outside of entertainment, but at least in entertainment, like nobody will give you an opportunity unless you like can prove your worth and already have success. So it's like the Matthew principle. It's like he who has everything more shall be given, and he who has nothing, everything shall be taken.
Whoa, I've never heard of that.
So it's just like to put it really simply, it's like success gives you more success, and failure just brings you more failure and pain.
But what happens when you have a failure, since everybody has failures?
Just not staying in that like mental feedback loop, and just knowing that, okay, yeah, you failed at something or you didn't achieve something. Look at the variables within that of like, why did that thing not happen that you wanted to happen? And understanding there's a difference between it being in your control or outside your control. And if it's within your control, then what could you have done differently next time? Write it down, and then just don't do that again next time. Then if it's outside your control, you just got to figure out how to let it go.
That's so profound.
So that's how I would deal with that.
Cool. And then, but to go back to what you were saying, is like, you were saying that I think the biggest challenge was before you proved your work.
Yeah.
You had to prove your work, right?
Yeah. So you just got to keep putting out, like for you, like you'd be putting out just amazing songs time and time and time again, to the point where it's like no one can ever question your artistic ability because you don't miss. That's kind of really what it is. And you have to just cultivate your skill set to a point where you have that much accuracy and confidence within yourself.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting about you that I'm like thinking about is you actually have a really strong social media following, but you don't need to have a strong social media following for your job. Like, it's almost like coincidental, I guess. But do you ever feel like if you put something out into the universe and it's not received, is that like, do you perceive that to be a cue that maybe you should try to focus on something else, or do you just absolutely not care what the reaction is?
There's two parts to that. I think with online criticism, you have to do your best to somewhat disassociate from it. Sometimes there is a thread of truth with what people are saying about like the thing you're creating, and you kind of have to kind of take things with a grain of salt, but there is a fine line within that. Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, just like, do you feel like the reaction, let's just say it's even like relevancy, like if you're putting something out into the world and you're not, like if you'd put out this film, for example, and let's just say like 2 people watched it and they were your mom and your dad.
Love that.
Or maybe your mom twice, because I know she loves you.
Yeah.
But would you think, you know what, maybe next time I have a huge purpose, like I won't go after filming like a really big movie about like my personal reality? Or would you think like, no, this film was amazing, I'm going to do it again, because it doesn't really matter. Like the reaction doesn't mean that the project was good or bad.
Well, that it's a fine line, because you're extrapolating the value of the thing you're creating to external feedback, and the worth of the thing that you're creating has to come from within. So, you know, like the film did well, obviously, in the film festival circuit and whatnot, but like views wise, it's not the craziest thing online. I think it has like 40,000 views, which in today's culture is like nothing. You know, people will go film TikToks and basic stuff on their iPhone and gets millions and millions of views. So by that metric, I should be completely depressed that it's like isn't hitting those numbers. So, you just like, you have to find what would be the right way to say it? You have to find the worth of the thing from inside, and not the feedback of what everybody's saying. Which, I mean, it's a fine line, because you don't want to get down when you're getting beat up online, but you also don't want to get too high when everyone's gassing you up all the time. Like you got to find like the middle ground.
I love getting high when people gas me up on the internet. It's like my favorite thing.
Cheap dopamine.
Yeah. What's your love language?
Well, what are the options?
Oh, because for me, like, my love language is words of affirmation. So I feel such genuine love when people gas me up on the internet.
It is. Mine's words of affirmation as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple last questions, then we're going to play a quick game, and then we're done. What would you give your younger self as advice?
Um, that's a really good question too, man. These are all profound questions. I had to
Thanks.
just come up with something on the spot. Um,
Words of affirmation.
I would say you have to fix what's broken in your head and heart, because no amount of success is ever going to fix anything. If anything, it's just a Band-Aid to how you're actually feeling. And I would just say to not be afraid to like go after what you want. And you would think on the outside looking in that like I've never had that issue, but like, you know, I've definitely second guessed myself throughout my entire career, or not throughout my entire career, but at least when I was first starting. And I just would have told myself like it's all going to work itself out, and you just have to like stick to basics and not put so much pressure on things happening in a timeline that's in your head that doesn't like, it's just the world doesn't translate like that. Like things don't happen on your own time. So just
knock on wood. That's a good one.
just like keep doing what you're doing, and just you have to just trust the process. That's such like a cliche thing to say, but there's really no other solution. And just like enjoy the journey, because like what's the point of doing all this if you're not even just enjoying the process of it all? Because like what we were saying earlier is like you get that achievement or you get that thing, whatever it is for you, and it doesn't bring that everlasting sense of joy or fulfillment. So just enjoy things, I guess.
Wow. Okay. We're going to play Would You Rather, but first I have one more question.
Okay. Ask whatever you want.
Okay. What advice would you give yourself right now if you could like take a step back and look at your life?
What I give myself right now? Damn. Maybe I have to always remind myself of this, but it especially being in entertainment, to just not compare yourself to other people all the time. Which is, you would think that you would work your way through that as you climb the ladder of success, if that's what you even want to call it. But like, there's always sorry, let me rephrase that. Your baseline for your like achievements, like the bar just keeps raising.
Yeah.
And you just compare yourself to the next like iteration ahead of you, or the next person ahead of you, whether it's through creative achievement, whether it's through finances, whether it's through physical things, emotional things. And I would just keep reiterating to myself that like you're on your own timeline, and it's completely unfair to judge yourself in one domain of somebody else's success, because that person who may have 10x the amount of money or 10x the amount of creative success might be broken emotionally or be broken mentally, whereas those are areas where I excel in, you know. So there is like a balance amongst all those things. So it would just be to only compare yourself and only benchmark yourself to who you were yesterday, a month ago, a year ago. And as long as you're making like these small little incremental improvements and all the things that matter to you, that's really kind of the only thing you can do. Yeah. And all the rest is just kind of white noise.
I love that. I feel like that's such good advice for a pop singer, because
I can't imagine what that's got to be like for you. I feel like that's even harder.
That's so much harder, because I feel like if somebody said like, how old are you? I'd be like, I'm 16. How old are you? Because I feel like I honestly feel like I'm so young. But I feel like there's like cultural expectations and pressure that go along with that. And then sometimes I'm like, wait a second, just because some people in the world have this as their opinion doesn't mean I have to accept that. And it's so easy once somebody becomes like huge to be like, oh yeah, but like that's the way, or like they got lucky or something. But then I also think that your limiting beliefs might stop you from achieving whatever you want to achieve. Whereas if you like owned your reality, you'd be like, I can freaking become famous at 50, or like, you know, like it doesn't really matter. And like, that's not even the metric that it should be judged on. And I think like keeping your like headspace light and hopeful is so key to having longevity in like a creative field.
So 2 questions for you. Okay. Why do you think we have limiting beliefs? Like, where do you think those come from? And then what helps keep you hopeful?
Hopeful?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I think limiting beliefs come from either external, like, if somebody yawns, you yawn. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody else has a limiting belief and you hear it, you're like, oh, let me have that limiting belief. And I think because it's cultural, so many people have that as their belief. I also think that it comes from fear.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know why I feel like all humans more or less struggle with this feeling of like being enough. So I think the more I face that, the less limiting beliefs I feel. And then what was your second question?
How do you say hopeful,
Oh,
especially in entertainment?
yeah, it's so random. I came across this Abraham Lincoln quote
Okay.
like 2016 or something, and it said something to the effect of like, a person with hope can achieve anything. And I just constantly remind myself that like hope is a choice, not like a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a lot to be hopeful for, you could still actually feel very hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's almost like I take a shower and then I like put on hope,
Nice.
you know?
That's great.
So yeah,
It's a good routine.
thanks. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna play Would You Rather.
Sweet.
And we're going to each ask like 3 questions. My first question is, would you rather have all of the like success as far as projects and like cool opportunities, but none of the money, or like all of the money and none of the like recognition?
Mm. Oof, that's a tough one. Having all the money would be pretty nice. I probably would just fade into oblivion and just like go enjoy my life.
Sail into the sunset
I
on
literally
your
would say
nice yacht.
I would sail into the sunset and work out every day and chill on an island somewhere. I'd probably take the money.
I
That
love that.
sounds nice.
Deal.
I'll
Okay.
be honest, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, your turn.
Would you rather? Ooh, this is good. Would you rather go on tour with Taylor Swift
Yes.
or go on tour with you open for Coldplay? Let's say, yeah, you went on tour with Coldplay.
Oh, damn. Coldplay has always been like one of my favorite artists. I would still say Taylor Swift. That concert was like
Her tour is
so
insane.
fun. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And the hype around it is just next level. But that's a good question. Okay, my second question is, would you rather relive your most successful day
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again? Like some version of that. Or would you rather live your life as it is with like all the downs as well as the ups?
I'd rather live my life with all the downs and the ups because if there is no downs, then the ups don't have meaning. The polarity between those two is what gives each of it purpose and meaning.
That's a good one. Damn. Okay, your turn.
I'm trying to think. This is good. Would you rather live in New York or LA?
LA.
All right.
Yeah. It used to be New York, but now it's definitely LA.
And why is that shifted?
So I can walk down the street in LA and bump into somebody I know. That gives me dopamine, which I'm very well aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like my industry is here and my family's here.
Nice.
So
Well,
it's
that
like,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So logistically, I have to figure that one out. But okay, my final question for you is, would you rather see into the future or not?
Definitely not.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Wow.
Because then there's no adventure. Part of the adventure of life is you don't know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
if you just knew every day what the next like couple steps are going to be, I would venture to think that you just probably wouldn't do anything because you already know what's going to happen.
Love that. Wow. So deep. Cool.
Okay, would you rather Okay, would you rather have the biggest song in the world, but that's the only thing that like once you have
A
that
one-hit
song,
wonder?
you're a one-hit wonder and nothing else pops? Which happens to a lot of people.
I
But
know.
let's
I'm
say
always shocked, but go ahead.
that would be the case. So you definitely probably wouldn't grow a fan base. You would just kind of be like it'd be a flash in the pan, but at least you could say that you had this moment. Or would you rather be on the grind for the next 20 years and just slowly put out songs, but nothing ever really hits?
Definitely the flash in the pan.
You think so?
Yeah, because then I go do something else. Like, that's exciting.
All right, that's fair.
But I always am shocked at one-hit wonders because I'm like, wait, if you had all that success and all that opportunity, like, why did you not come out with another song for 20 years?
They might have not written it,
Yeah.
which is probably the case.
Logistics, yeah.
Yeah. They're actually not as talented as you think.
Yeah.
Or it's just right place, right time, and a hit with the culture.
Yeah.
That's what I think is really challenging with music is there's an unpredictability about it that you don't know what's going to work. Whereas with film, it's a little bit different. You're not really playing with culture or relevancy as much. Like a good story is a good story, and like,
Yeah.
It'll last the test of time.
True.
It's not always the case with songs. Obviously, there's songs that last forever, but like some of the stuff that's like trending right now, like it's only trending for right now.
Yeah, like people probably won't care about Megan Thee Stallion in 20 years, but they will care about Hero by Enrique Iglesias.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, last two questions. Whose story would you want to go under the covers of?
As far as like tell their story?
Yeah, just like curious to know what's their story.
So my biggest inspiration creatively forever and always is Christopher Nolan, who's I'm sure you're familiar
not Star
with.
Wars, Superman.
No, definitely not. The Batman trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, Tenet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's
Sick.
done a million different things. He's a very secretive person. So I actually just bought this book. It's called Variations, and it's like the only piece of literature on this guy about his like upbringing and about his process and everything. And I find it just so fascinating. So I'd love to like really dive into his story a bit more and understand like how he works.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
And last and final question, what's something that's under your covers that people don't know about you?
Damn, we're really just
He's like, I have nothing else to say after this interview.
That people don't know about me.
Yeah.
Normally when people ask for a fun fact, I say pole vaulting.
Oh, yeah.
But I did already
You
say
did
that.
tell me that.
Because that's the most random thing in the world, and I don't think anybody could ever predict those words would come out of my mouth.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That could be it, unless you have something else.
The people don't know about me. I'm just going to go with that one.
Yeah, pole vaulting. That's pretty sick. You're like flying through the air via a pole.
Yeah, it's so random.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a true treat.